Hello everybody, welcome to the first video of this YouTube channel, The Book Nerd. Me, as the Book Nerd, will be reviewing various books and I hope you want to read them once I'm done with this book today. This book is called The Witches and it is written by Roald Dahl and illustrated by Quentin Blake. So we have a table of contents here, so our first slide will be title page, which we just went over. Our second slide is a table of contents, the slide right now. Our third slide is some information about the author. Our slide 4 is some information on the book itself. Our slides 5 through 16 is on the summary of the book. And our slides 17 through 19 is my thoughts on the book. So first, let's go into slide 3 about the author Roald Dahl. Roald Dahl was born on September 13, 1916 in Randolph, Wales. Unfortunately, both his father and sister died when he was 3. His mother raised him well, along with his 3 sisters and 2 stepsisters. He loved to read adventure books, but hated school. Since he didn't like school, he joined the Shell Oil Company in Tanzania, Africa, and worked there till 1939 instead of going to university at the age of 18. In 1939, he went on to join the Royal Air Force during World War II. After the war, he was asked by C.S. Forester, an English writer, to write about his experiences in the war so he could submit it to the Saturday Post. He wrote it so well, Forester didn't have to make any edits to it. After marrying Patricia Neal, a Hollywood actress, and having 5 children, he went on to start writing children's books. His first one that was published was James and the Giant Peach, a big success. Many other books were written, and some were even adapted to a movie form. These books have also been translated into 68 different languages, with the book being sold about every 2.5 seconds. Among the 19 children's books he wrote, we will be focusing on one in particular today, The Witches. So here on the left, you can see some pictures. So here is Roald Dahl in his uniform while he was at the Royal Air Force. This is Roald Dahl with Patricia Neal and his kids. And below here is Roald Dahl's childhood home in Randolph, Wales. And now we have background information on the book itself, The Witches. This book was published on October 27th, 1983. The genre of this book is children's fantasy, but more specifically, dark fantasy. This children's book is recommended for children over the age of 8. Having also been made into a graphic novel, The Witches also earned many awards. The book won the Whitbread Book Award in 1983, and in 2012, it was ranked number 81 in an all-time children's novel survey. Also in 2012, The Grand High Witch appeared on the Royal Mail commemorative postage stamp. In 2019, the BBC listed The Witches on its list of the 100 most influential novels. This book has also been made into a movie, 2 to be exact. This book was based on Dahl's childhood experiences, with a grandmother much like his own mother, Sophia Dahl. The editor for this book, Stephen Roxburgh, helped Roald Dahl improve the plot and reinvent the characters in the story to make the story more interesting. Once it was published, Roald Dahl fans praised the illustrator, Quentin Blake, for such profound drawings in the book. This book is also in 6th place of the most popular books written by Roald Dahl. So on the left we have pictures again. So here, this gigantic portrait is Quentin Blake, an illustrator of many of Roald Dahl's books. Down here is Stephen Roxburgh, editor of the book The Witches, and here is one of Quentin Blake's many drawings in The Witches. Now, we move on to the summary. So first, let's introduce you to the characters. So on the top right, we have Bruno Jenkins, a spoiled child, and a fat and chubby one while you're at it. The Grand High Witch, who devises a plan to get rid of all the children in England. The grandma/grandmama is the boy's only living relative, very kind woman. The boy who narrates the story from his perspective. The Witches, chapters 1 through 6. The main character, whose name is unknown, first starts off our little adventure by telling us what exactly is a witch. In chapter 2, he begins where he and his parents go to Norway to visit his grandmother. The book also says, I myself had 2 separate encounters with witches before I was 8 years old. From the first, I escaped unharmed, but on the second occasion, I was not so lucky. We're hinted here something is going to happen to the main character, but I'll get more into that in section 2. While they were driving to his grandmother's house, the car skidded off the slippery street. The little boy's parents had died in the crash, and the little boy was left heartbroken. His grandmother, a kind and smart old lady, was sent to live with him. After spending all night mourning over his parents' deaths, his grandmother brings up the topic of witches, telling the little boy how to recognize a witch and stories of 5 children that have gone missing. His grandmother is a retired witchophile, which someone who studies and knows a lot about witches. The 5 children met an unsettling fate, none of which would be on someone's bucket list. The first, a child named Renhard Hansen, disappeared when she went away with a tall woman. And on the bottom we have a stunning view of Norway and of the valley and mountains. And here is what a witch would look like in the book. And oh, we have this green, weird looking green sphere here. I wonder who it is. Oh, it's a life tip dude. Hi! Life tip number 1. Don't go wandering off with random people you don't know if you don't want to disappear. Now we continue with the summary of the witches. The second victim of a witch had to do with the family by the last name of Christensen and their oil painting. All there was ducks and a farmhouse in the oil painting. Remember the oil painting. It's going to be important in a bit. So one day, the Christensen's daughter came home eating an apple, claiming a nice woman on the street gave it to her. The next day, the little girl had disappeared. Oil paintings of farmhouses like the ones the Christensen family had. This is an example, and this is another example. They're not exact, but I think they should be close enough. Oh, and life tip 2 comes in again. With life tip number 2, don't accept random things from strangers. Quiz time! Where do you think the little girl went? Number 1, outside. Number 2, a friend's house. Number 3, in the oil painting. And number 4, don't ask me, I don't know. Answer revealed in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The correct answer is number 3, in the oil painting. Remember the oil painting I told you about a minute ago? Well, that's where the girl ended up. And don't ask me how that happened. Fantasy can sometimes get weird and confusing. Trust me. Bridget Svensson was a little girl minding her own business until one day she started growing feathers all over her. Eventually, she became a chicken and laid gigantic eggs every day. Harold was the fourth child to experience the powers of a witch. One morning, his skin turned a peculiar color. Then his skin hardened and became cracky, and he turned into a child-shaped block of granite. The fifth and last one was one of an 11-year-old boy called Leaf. While he was on vacation with his family, he went underwater for a long time. When he emerged, he was a porpoise. He gave his brothers rides for the whole afternoon, before finally saying goodbye and swimming off, disappearing forever. In chapter 3, Grandma starts to talk about how to recognize a witch. Basically, witches are bald, they have claw-like fingers, have large nose holes, have blue spit, and they don't have toes. To cover all of that up, they wear a wig, they also wear gloves at all times, they don't hide their noses because there really is no way to do that. They just don't spit, and they wear high heels to hide their toeless feet. The next day, they are forced to return to England so the boy can go to school. One night, while working on his treehouse, he had his first encounter with a witch. The witch tried to lure him down, but failed, and the boy escaped unharmed. For the summer holidays, the boy and his grandma planned to go to Norway, but due to his grandmother's sudden health conditions, they couldn't go there, and they went to Bournemouth instead. He got 2 white mice as a gift for the trip, which were discovered on their first day by the chambermaid. The manager and the boy reached a compromise in which the mice had to stay in their cages. The boy then sneaks the mice into a big room to train them. After a moment, streams of people rush into the room, and the door is bolted shut and locked. And the little boy has no idea what is going to happen to him. Dun dun dun. Now here is a view of the beach in Bournemouth, and here is 2 very cute white mice. And now we'll continue with chapter 7 through 13. Witches for the whole room, revealing their toeless feet, their claw-like fingers. The Great High Witch calls to order, and they begin the annual meeting of all witches in England. The Great High Witch has thought and prepared a special formula to get rid of all the children in England, you see. The formula will turn them into mice in exactly 24 hours. The witches were to buy a candy shop, put 1 drop of the formula into each candy piece, And then, wait for the magic to begin. The Grand High Witch, who has decided to prepare an example, very thoughtful of her, went to open the padlocked door when she suddenly heard a knock. A boy called Bruno, who was a fat and chubby child, came into the room. He could always be seen eating something. He came in quite greedily, not realizing he ate some chocolate with a magic mouse formula exactly 24 hours ago. Then on the spot, he sprouted fur, then a tail, and little tiny feet. He scurried about, and the witches hastily readied the mousetrap, but Bruno was too quick. He avoided it and went off to hide, and he was later found eating a sandwich. The little boy is horrified and panics as one of the witches announces that she smells a child. And now on the bottom for pictures, we have Bruno Jenkins, we have a chocolate bar, and we have a cartoon picture of the Magic Mouse formula. Now we continue with it, but now it's a quote from the book. "Wait!" shrieks one of the witches in the back row. "Hold everything!" Her shrieking voice echoes through the ballroom like a trumpet. All the witches suddenly stopped and turned and looked towards the speaker. She was one of the taller witches, and I could see her standing there, with her head tilted back and her nose in the air, and she was sucking in great long breaths of air through those curvy pink seashelly nostrils of hers. "Wait!" she shouted again. "What is it?" the others cried out. "Dog droppings!" she yelled. "Just then I got a whiff of dog droppings!" "Surely not!" the others shouted. "There couldn't be!" "Yes, yes!" shouted the first witch. "There it is again! It's not strong, but it's there! I mean, it's here! It's definitely somewhere not too far away!" "What's going on down there?" shouted the Grand High Witch, glaring down from the platform. "Moses just got a whiff of dog's droppings, your Dryness," someone called back to her. "What rubbish is this?" shouted the Grand High Witch. "She has dog's droppings on the brain. There are no children in this room." "Hang on!" cried a witch called Mildred. "Hang on, everybody! Don't move! I'm getting in again!" Her huge curvy nose holes were waving in and out like a pair of fishtails. "It's getting stronger! It's hitting me harder now! Can the rest of you smell it?" All the noses of all witches in that room went up in the air. All the nostrils began to snug and stiff. "She's right!" cried another voice. "She's absolutely right! Dog stockings it is, strong and foul!" In a matter of seconds, the entire assembly of witches had taken up the dreaded cry of dog stockings. "Dog stockings!" they shouted. "The room is full of it! Pooh! Pooh! Ooh! 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 Why did we not spell it before? It stinks like a snewer. Some little slime must be hiding not so very far away from here." "Find it!" screamed the Grand High Witch. "Track it down! Rootle it out! Follow your noses till you get it." Sadly, they found the boy and his two mice. The Grand High Witch kicks his mice across the room, and he himself is also turned into a mouse. This is what he was talking about in the beginning, where he said he encountered witches twice, but the second time he wasn't so lucky. He quickly scurries back to his grandmother's room, with Bruno following him, and they plan to get revenge on the witches. First, the boy sneaks into the Grand High Witch's hotel room and takes some magic mouse formula. But at dinner is where the action really starts, my dear readers. And here's the dining area of the hotel they are staring at. Hotel Magnificent. All the witches are seated in the two long tables at the back. They are dressed in black and all seem to have black hair mostly. And then we have the witches, chapters 14 through 22, summary. Grandmama and the little boy, hidden in her purse, make their way to the main dining room, where all the witches are eating their dinner. The boy sneakily slips a bottle of magic mouse formula into their soup, and a few seconds later, they all turn into rats. The boy and his grandmother quickly make a run for it, and they go back to England. Back home, his grandma designs and makes all sorts of contraptions to help the boy open doors, eat, sleep, etc. Grandmama also figures out where all the Grand High Witches live, and they plot to end the witches. The story ends right there for us readers, but the little boy and his grandmama go on another quest to demolish the witches once and for all. And here's the boy's room back in England. My thoughts on the book, The Witches. Being the nerd I am, my biggest pet peeve about the book was that the author didn't release a sequel or continue the book. One thing you have to know about me is that I hate it when authors brings up one of the most interesting points in the story, catches the reader's attention, and then ends it. It's annoying. Trust me. Yes, I know you honestly couldn't care any more about this, but please bear with me for a bit. I feel like Ronald Dahl could have released a second book continuing the adventures of the boy and his grandma. I would like to find out if they were successful. What are they called? Or maybe they just decided it's too risky? I feel like the author could have continued and then extended on this point for at least another few pages, if not a whole other book. Other than that, I think the book was written wonderfully, and I'd like to point out a few sections that stood out a lot to me. First, it was the start of the book, when we get the description of witches. I thought it was incredibly creative for the author to come up with these peculiar soup with no toes, blue spit, etc. I think it's amazing how he kind of combines animals and humans together to make a witch. See, claws like fingers come from animals, and the face and all of that comes from us humans. I also like how the author made the Grand High Witch's plan to turn our children into mice instead of maybe disappearing them one by one, which is pretty dull and boring. It was also ingenious of Roald Dahl to make up many ingredients too, and I'm sure, well, like 99.9% sure, that he spent a lot of time trying to figure out a sensible plan, one that would still be appealing and not too haunting for kids that read it. But as the genre is dark fantasy, he still does include some bits there and there that gives me an occasional chill. For one, the part where the witch tries to lure the boy down with a snake, that creeped me out a lot. Snakes are definitely scary, and I know that from experience. Another thing that stood out to me is that the author also slips in some lessons, but the reader rarely notices, as he does it so sneakily. And continuing on that there are some bits and bits that gives me the occasional chill. I think being turned into a mice, that didn't give me the creep, but for some people it certainly did. And now we'll move into a quote that I thought showed that he snuck in with a lesson that I'll show in the next slide. So on the very first morning of our arrival, the chambermaid was making my bed when one of my mice poked its head out from under the sheets. They made a owl shriek that brought a dozen people running to see who was being murdered. I was reported to the manager. There followed an unpleasant scene in the manager's office with the manager, my grandmother, and me. The manager, whose name is Mr. Stringer, was a bristly man in a tall white coat. "I cannot permit mice in my hotel, madame," he said to my grandmother. "How dare you say that when your rotten hotel is full of rats anyway?" my grandmother cried. "Rats," Mr. Stringer said, going mauve in the face. "There are no rats in this hotel." "I saw one this very morning," my grandmother said. "It was running down the corridor into the kitchen." "That is not true," cried Mr. Stringer. "You had better get the rat catcher out and at once," my grandmother said, "before I report you to the public health authorities. I expect there's rats going all over the kitchen floor and stealing the food off the shelves and jumping in and out of the soup." "Never!" cried Mr. Stringer. "No wonder my breakfast toast was nibbled around the edges this morning," my grandmother went on relentlessly. "No wonder it had a nasty ratty taste. If you're not careful, the health people will be ordering the entire hotel to be closed before everybody gets typhoid fever." "You are not being serious, madame," Mr. Stringer said. "I was never more serious in my life," my grandmother said. "Are you or are you not going to allow my grandson to keep his white mice in his room?" The manager knew when he was beaten. "May I suggest a compromise, madame?" he said. "I will permit him to keep them in his room, as long as they are never allowed out of the cage. How's that?" "That will suit us very well," my grandmother said, and she stood up and marched out of the room with me behind her. This shows that his grandmother is very persistent and very smart in negotiating. Roald Dahl is showing us to take what you can, good or bad, and be grateful, and don't argue with an offer that you might not like, but you can live with it. And that's pretty much it for this video. Phew, time really flew by. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for taking your time to watch this video. Also, don't forget to smash the subscribe button and its partner, the notification bell. Hit the like button too while you're at it. And you wouldn't dare, would you, to forget to leave a comment down below of what you thought about this video. If you have any books you would like to be reviewed, please fill in the Google form down in the description below that I will include, and I'll see if I can work it into a video. I hope I encouraged you to read a new book today, too. Our goal for this video is 35 likes and 30 subs on this channel by the end of the year. It would be excellent if these goals are reached sooner than later, though. Keep watching these videos and keep on reading. Bye! Happy reading!